We were wondering when you two were going to show up." The hulking purple Enduran was waiting for them in the common room when Lizra and Human entered. "Y'all missed out on the great Tic-Tac Argol adventure." "Ah, yeah, I should have been there to see it. At one point we jumped through a window." "Yes, but that was after you nearly stole that farmer's prized livestock animal," Tic-Tac chimed in. "I couldn't help myself. I mean, did you see how adorable that thing was? To think he was going to eat the little guy, I couldn't let that happen. And then when that one Quarren tried to buy you, thinking you were a comms array, oh, you were so pissed. I don't even know half the words you called him. Now, are you okay, Captain? You look like you've been crying." "Yes, I'm fine. Please keep going. We didn't mean to interrupt your tale," Lizra replied, reaching a paw up to her face to check if there were still tears. "Well, it wasn't that awesome. You just had to have been there sort of thing," Argol said, calming back down. "We got everything you requested, Captain, along with a few additional items that Zate had inquired about. All is safely aboard the ship in Bay 2 if you would like to inspect any of it," reported Tic-Tac. "No, I trust you too. I'm sure it's everything we needed. I think I'm going to retire early tonight. We can leave first thing in the morning. The OV is expecting us back by now after I gave them the last update. If you need me, you know where to find me." The small Illyrian went into her room and quietly shut the door behind her, leaving the three others alone in the common room. "Is everything all right with Lizra? You didn't run into any trouble out there, did you, Human?" inquired Argol. "No, nobody bothered us. It was just a long day. I think I'll sleep here in the common room tonight, if that's all right with you," Human said, laying down across the bench seat next to the wall. As he did so, the metal crunched underneath him, but he didn't seem to notice or care. "Yea, of course. Not my place to tell you no. Have you put on weight?" Argol asked, looking down and inspecting the bench. He piped back up again when he didn't receive a response. "Rigyite. Well, since everyone's settling down so early, I think I'll go keep Zate company for a bit at the helm. They need a break from working all the time anyway." Argol stepped out, in the direction of the command room. The heavy footsteps echoed down the hallway with him. "Your heart rate is much higher than normal. I take it that it was not as well as you said?" Tic-Tac asked from the table. "No, it was a good day. I think I needed it. First day I've ever had off," he chuckled. "Just thinking some things over, that's all." Human was laying down, his arm over his helmet to shield himself from the light. "Would you like to talk about it?" "No, thanks." "Would you like me to put you to sleep for the night?" "I can manage it on my own. Don't worry about me." "Understood. I'm here if you need me for anything." "Thanks, buddy." The Scav departed the following morning, set for the Illyrian home planet, Aileris. After a few days' travel, they finally broke into the outskirts of the system. Once an industrial world that specialized in manufacturing computer systems and ship hardware, it was now a fortress that served as the powerhouse of the Ev's military might. Scattered around the system were numerous shipyards and production centers that were constantly bustling with space traffic and naval exercises. Upon nearing their final destination, Lizra called her crew together to prepare for their arrival. Standing on the table to command their attention, she spoke. "Since Zate already took care of getting us landing clearance, we should be arriving within a few moments. Once we're down, Argol, you will be dismissed. I'll reach out to you once we receive any new orders. Enjoy the time with your family. I know they'll be happy to see you." "Much appreciated, Captain. I told my brother Gurgol that we would be back in time for me to help him with a project ship he's been struggling to get running for years. He needs my fine adjustment skills since he keeps breaking the damn thing," Argol said, looking over at Tic-Tac with a grin. "Send your brother my apologies." "For what?" "For the fact that his ship isn't going to see its maiden voyage any time soon," Tic-Tac quipped. Argol chuckled at the comment, and it was clear that the hostile tensions between the two from before had dissipated. "He should be glad I'm not bringing you along. Otherwise he'd have his head in the dictionary the entire time as you try to talk him through it." Lizra laughed, glad that the two were finally playing nicely. She glanced over at Human, who was still nestled in the man-shaped indentation he had crushed into the bench. "If you had a paycheck, you'd be paying for that. But I suppose your help in escaping back when we first met is payment enough." She sighed. "I asked you earlier if you would be willing to accompany me to my debriefing and explain your side of events. It would help my case when I have to tell them that the weapon we were sent to retrieve wasn't a weapon at all. I suppose that'll be the nice thing to do. When we're done here, is there any chance I could get my own ship on this planet? Asked Human. Without money, no. However, you may be able to cut a deal with the people I'm reporting to in order to get one. They'll most likely make requests of you, but you have no obligation to actually fulfill them unless you desire to, replied Lizra. Guess that dream's a little more difficult than I thought it would be. I'll hear 'em out, but I'm not going to promise anything. Human replied, still seated on his back, staring at the ceiling. Tic-tac, I'm going to assume you'll be coming too. Correct. Excellent. Now that everyone knows what they're doing, I'll go check in with Zape before landing. Make any final preparations that you may have. Lizra finished the briefing and went to go see how the extant was doing at the bridge. Opening the door, she found Zate wasn't working as furiously as they had been during the previous leg of the journey. So, do you have any plans on arrival? She asked. Not particularly. We don't enjoy being planetside very much. Our work can be completed from here, Zate responded quickly, casually tapping away at one of the interfaces. I've already compiled and forwarded our mission report. Our presence will not be necessary at the briefing. You already sent it to them. I never got to look over the final draft. You know that was supposed to go through me first. Complained Lizra. We finalized it when you went on to quarry. When you returned, you appeared fatigued. We did not feel it was necessary to burden you with a simple formality. The extant explained, keeping its attention focused on the interfaces. I do not appreciate you going over my head on this. It may have been a formality as you put it, but those reports are still one of my primary obligations. She sighed exasperated, bringing a paw up to rub her face. Anything additional that you included that I might need to know? Nothing that we have not already briefed you on. All right, then. Well, enjoy yourself while we're gone, and keep the scav in good shape. Is there anything that you'd like me to bring back for you? No, all is well with us. We shall see you when you return, Zate stated coldly, never once stopping her work to look at the captain. The scav made its final approach to a small base on the outskirts of one of the larger cities. The majority of the installation's land was dedicated to the spaceport. It was filled with the hum of ships' engines as they constantly arrived and departed in all directions. It was a kind of controlled chaos, consisting of narrow misses and quick departures, that could only be achieved by the extants at the helm of every vessel. Instead of landing in the center of the facility like the rest of the ships, the scav settled down into an enclosed hangar embedded in the ground nearby. Lizra was still at the controls when she noticed how they had not landed in their usual dedicated space. Zate, why were we cleared for an enclosed pad? We have classified cargo aboard. It was at the request of your superiors that we exercise caution when bringing it planetside, they said without hesitation. As I said before, Zate, you have to notify me of these developments, and if you're referring to our guests as the cargo, I'd rather you not. At least there's less walking this way. I'm not complaining about that. We'll talk about this when I return. I've given you too much leniency with your duties, and you've been taking advantage of that far more often than I would prefer. Lizra departed from the room, heading out to be the face of the ship when they all exited. When the scav finally touched down, it was accompanied by a large thud from above as the landing pad's hatch closed. Lizra opened the cargo bay doors and signaled for the ramp to be lowered to allow their departure. At the bottom, waiting for them, was a squad of heavily armed Endurans and Brunts, with heavy weapons pointed at the crew. Another Illyrian in a pristine white uniform was sat atop a small platform that hovered at eye level with the soldiers around him. He was positioned in the center of the squad and looked less than happy to see them. The one on the left, seize him. Isolate the remainder of the crew and search the ship. Leave the extant, he said curtly whilst looking upon the shocked expressions of Lizra's group. Wait, what? What did we do? We're returning from our mission. Ensign Marketh, you sent us on this mission. What's the meaning of this? Lizra yelled down as the squad advanced towards them, weapons never leaving their targets. You will receive justification following the safe procurement of the weapon and your subsequent debriefing. That will be all for now. Ensign Marketh countered, while folding his arms and looking up at her with annoyance. Wait, even me. I've got plans today, Argal shouted, looking down at the ensign who was already turning to leave. Guys, come on. It's me, Argal, he said, drawing out his name. You don't have to point those weapons at me. Trueball, we're brothers. You're really going to do this? We're all brothers. Jackass. That's not going to get you any favors with us, said a different one as he placed Argyle in cuffs without resistance. Human stood there quietly looking down at the measly security squad in front of him, his intentions unclear as he analyzed the situation. He seemed to make up his mind and was getting ready to move. But before he took any drastic actions, Lizra quickly clambered up his leg and onto his shoulder, throwing her paws in the air. Wait, he'll go willingly. Please, we don't need to make this any worse than it already is. We'll cooperate, she pleaded. Orders shall be obeyed. If it steps out of line, we will use force, growled one of the brunts from the center. One of the others threw a pair of cuffs up the ramp to Human. Put him on, and you, off of him, he yelled, never taking his barrel off of Human. Lizra started to get down, stopping on Human's back for a moment when she was out of their view, speaking only loud enough for him to hear. Just go along with it. I'll work something out. Please trust me with this. She hopped back down onto the ramp and walked up to the squad, holding them at gunpoint. One of them tried to reach down and grab her. Get your hands off of me. I am an officer. He didn't press any further, the majority of his attention on Human, who slowly donned the cuffs and stepped forward with his hands up in front of him. Lizra was separated from Human when they entered the base. He was rushed off down a hallway in the opposite direction of her, and she was ushered after Ensign Marketh. When she arrived at her destination, she was on the glass side of an interrogation room filled with a few other officers and military personnel. The opposite side of the glass sat a blank metal-lined room with a heavy door and a single bench in the center. You're dismissed. Pryor, we'll take her from here. Ensign Marketh barked at the brunt, then looked over at Lizra. You will aid us in the interrogation if requested, and will remain silent unless prompted to speak. We will discuss your own actions once we're finished here. Ensign, you don't understand who. The only thing I wish to hear you say from this point onward is yes, Ensign. Am I understood? Yes, Ensign. Good. Commander, we will have the subject here momentarily. Are there any questions that the board has for Captain Lizra at this time? Marketh said, looking at the most senior officer in the room. No, they have read the report. I will be acting on the board's behalf for these proceedings, replied an aging Illyrian with silver and orange fur. His white uniform was weighted down from the large rack of ribbons and medals that adorned his shoulders. Remember, Ensign, it currently believes that the rest of its species is dead. We have isolated all of the information regarding this case in a severed computer system to prevent its AI from accessing it. We cannot allow it to realize its species may in fact still be alive. Keep that in mind during the questioning. Of course, sir, Marketh acknowledged. After what seemed like an eternity, Human was finally escorted into the room opposite them, the black box of tic-tac still fixed to his back. A voice came over the intercom on Lizra's side of the room. Sir, we were unable to separate it from its computer system or remove any of the equipment. Handing it over to you now. Once the voice went away, Human sat down on the metal bench in the center of the room, once again denting it as he sat. But it seemed this time around he made it a point to do so. Commander, permission to commence questioning? Inquired Marketh. Proceed. This is Ensign Marketh of the Outer Front. Are you able to understand me? Human sat quietly, his orange visor fixated on the glass. I will repeat the question. Do you... Yes. The room of officers had no reaction to Human's voice. They must have understood what he said. Lizra guessed that Zate had already sent the translation of Human's language with a report. She couldn't believe that they had gone behind her back and orchestrated this without telling her. She stared through the glass at Human, hoping he wasn't thinking of doing anything that might put him in danger. State your name for the record, Marketh said, starting up again. Human. Do you know why we are holding you here today, Human? No. On the display in front of you are images depicting a species that resembles you. Are you a member of the group in the picture? Lizra looked at the interface monitor on their side of the room and recognized the images as showed up one after another. They were the ones from the files that Zate had given her, these showing a group of humans killing her people in that ancient Illyrian town. No. You share the exact same appearance as the species in these images. Is this your species that you see in the pictures before you? Yes. Other than you, Are there any more of your species that currently reside in the galaxy at this moment? No. Are you now, or have you ever been, affiliated with the Corps or any of its past military operations? No. Do you have connections to any currently living creatures outside of the ship that brought you here today? No. You will remain here until you answer the questions truthfully and completely. We expect more than single-word answers. Am I understood? Marketh stated. Human stood up, looking directly at the officers through the glass. I remain here because that's what I choose to do. You remain alive for that same reason. Am I understood?